crafty lumberjacks.
You know, one of the questions we get asked all the time is, where do you get your inspiration from? One of our biggest inspirations comes from you guys.
Yes, we saw these paper stars on one of our friends' Instagram accounts, and we've never seen them before, so we knew we had to get in on the action.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Traditionally, you would use kite paper. Now, we've never heard of kite paper, but it's a mix between wax paper and tissue paper. So it's nice and durable like wax paper, but really colorful like tissue paper. And we would totally recommend ordering that online.
Yeah, it's worth it because the tissue paper is so delicate. It's going to be a difficult journey trying to fold that and keeping it intact so it doesn't rip.
Yeah.
But all right, now it's time to fold.
So the first star we're making is super simple and it needs 8 points. So we need 8 pieces of kite paper. Now the first thing you want to do is fold your paper in half so it looks like a triangle, and then open it up and fold the 2 points to the center crease. It's almost like making a paper airplane. Now when you're working with kite paper, it does slip a little bit when you're pressing it down, so you want to make sure that you're being really precise as you fold it down. There is a precision aspect to making paper stars. The more precise you are, the nicer they're going to look.
We have all our pieces folded. Now we're ready to glue them together, and for that we're just going to be using a glue stick.
You can use glue dots or even double-sided tape, but I think glue stick works really well, especially if you're working with kids. Now it's time to start forming our star. You want to think of, if you're using multiple colors, the pattern you're going to use, and then just start gluing everything together, making sure all the folds are on one side. And when you are putting your star together, you really want to take time and make sure that the center points are all lined up, just so everything works really well. And for the last point of your star, you want to lay it on top of the last piece that you glued, but then slide it under the first piece that you glued.
Wow. They look awesome. Yes. I can't wait to hang these in the window and see how they look. Bye.
Quilling is basically the art of rolled paper. You can buy a kit online or you can make your own. The kits are really inexpensive, so we bought an inexpensive kit that we're going to start with. So we're going to start showing you some basic coils. We're going to start with a tight coil with no space in between the rolls of paper. They have a little slit here in the center, and just roll as evenly as possible. We don't want any tornadoes or anything like that.
A tornado is when it becomes uneven.
Yeah. And then kind of guide your finger, your forefinger and your thumb to kind of keep it even. And then we are just going to roll, trying to keep the paper as even as possible as we spin.
All right, and so for the tight coil, you're just going to glue the end.
All right, and we have our first coil. Now that we know some basic coils and techniques of how to roll the paper, we're going to try our first time to create some artwork using our quilling.
Yeah, and we're going to go with the space theme. We're going to splatter the paper with just a little bit of gold paint, just to give it a little bit of interest. Our paper is dry, we cut it to the size of the frame we're using, and now we're going to create a circle for the shape of our planet.
You only want to use a little bit of glue on each piece of paper, and then I'm going to use a Metro card. You can use any kind of thing to just disperse the glue. Remember we talked about a little dab will do ya. So you don't need a lot of glue.
And you'll see how I'm going to use that in just a second. I'm just going to glue the ends to create a circle. Just like that. I am going to cut off this little overhang. So now I'm going to take this glue and I'm actually just going to lightly press the edges. So now I'm going to place the circle right in the center of the paper.
We're going to break up our planet into different sections. So we're going to create a kind of a swoosh of the planet right in the center. We're going to do the same thing that Andrew did with the circle.
We're going to add another element to it. You can take 2 pieces of quilling paper and put them together and quill at the same time, and that's going to add a little bit of dimension.
And then we're going to group similar quill techniques together.
And we're finally going to start using our tweezers just to start laying everything in.
All right, so we created a planet, and now we're just going to finish it off by adding some stars around it. To finish it off, we're going to pop it in a shadow box. You want to use a shadow box rather than a frame because it is 3-dimensional. Bye!
everybody, I'm Karen, and today I am bringing back the paper chain, this super easy project, and we're going to make mini paper chains to make this grown-up aesthetic wall art. So the first thing you'll need for this project is colored paper, and you can pick any color scheme that you want. And this is optional, but you can also grab some graph paper to plan out your design before you start. You can always adjust this as you go, but I find that it helps to just have a game plan going into it. Next, grab a paper cutter and cut strips of paper that measure 1/4 inch thick. If you don't have a paper cutter, you could also use a craft knife or scissors. So once you have lots of strips of paper, you're going to cut those into pieces that measure 3¼ inches. And once you have one of them cut, instead of measuring every time, you can just use the first one as a pattern. So once all of those are cut, it's time to actually start making our paper chain. We're just going to use plain old tape, and I think we all know how to make paper chains. Just loop each piece into a circle and tape it together, adding a small piece of tape on each side so that the tape wraps all the way around. And then just keep adding more and more circles, following the pattern that you made earlier. So once you have all of your paper chains made, you can put them onto a dowel, and then the nice thing about this project is that you can adjust it as much as you want by cutting off loops or adding new ones. To finish it off, you're just going to grab a piece of string and use hot glue to wrap it around each side of the dowel so that all of the paper chains are hanging in the center. And that's it. Just hang it up wherever you want. Try to make sure that all of the tape is rotated so that it's on the back side so that you don't see it. And now you have a new piece of wall art that takes something as simple as a paper chain and seriously elevates it. Hi everybody, I'm Karen Cabot. Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable miniature hot air balloons. Alright, so let's start with the hanging balloons. For this project, you'll need a piece of scrapbook paper in any color that you like. Pick your paper and then grab a scrap piece of cardstock and fold it in half. Draw half of a hot air balloon shape onto that paper and then cut it out, so that when you unfold it, you have a symmetrical hot air balloon pattern. Trace this pattern on the back of your scrapbook paper 4 times and then cut them out. Now, if your paper is the same color on both sides, you can skip this next step. But if it's only one-sided, like mine is, put 3 pieces of double-sided tape on the back of each cutout shape. Press them down firmly onto the back of the scrapbook paper and then carefully cut them out again. And then this way you've got the scrapbook paper on both sides of the hot air balloon shape. And be sure to repeat this with all 4 of the shapes. Now set one of them aside and carefully cut the other 3 in half. You should end up with 6 half shapes and then 1 full shape. Now warm up your hot glue gun and put a thin line of glue down the long edge of one of the half shapes. Press it into the full shape right in the center, and then very quickly, before the glue hardens, repeat this with 2 more of the half shapes, and you're going to want to hold them in place so that they stay at a 45-degree angle when they dry. Let the glue dry completely and then flip it over. Repeat this on the other side, first gluing on the center shape and then the other 2 next to it, making sure that they stay at an angle. And then once the glue is completely dry, you should have a super cute 3D hot air balloon shape that looks like this. So now set that aside and cut 2 pieces of white string. One should be a couple inches long, the other should be about 1 inch long. Now to make the basket, I'm going to be using a wooden dowel and a saw to cut off a cube from the end. If you don't have these materials on hand, you can make a cube that's about that same size from paper or air-dry clay, anything lightweight that you have on hand. Now grab your hot glue gun and glue the longer piece of string to the bottom of that cube, and then also up the sides as well. Once the glue dries, trim the ends of the string, and you should end up with a piece that looks something like this. To attach it, use your hot glue gun to put a small dab of glue on the bottom of one of the folds in the hot air balloon. Carefully press the ends of one of the strings into the glue, being careful not to burn yourself. Repeat this on the other side with the other string. And then once the glue dries, the wooden cube should be hanging off the bottom like the basket in a hot air balloon. And finally, to be able to hang it up, take your hot glue gun one more time and attach the smaller piece of string to the top of the balloon. You should end up with a small loop. Once that dries, you can go ahead and hang it up, and I think this is one of the cutest things I have ever seen in my entire life.
We're gonna turn all our paper scraps into a work of art.
Ooh, let's get started.
So we picked out some paper here. We've already kind of sorted it into light colors. Of course, we always gravitate towards navy, blues.
What we need is 2 frames.
That are the same size and a window screen.
Yeah,
And we're just gonna staple it to our frame here.
on the flat side of the frame.
Yeah, and we don't want it super tight, but we do want it taut.
Throw these into a blender with warm water and blend it up so it makes a nice pulp. We're gonna do it into 3 stages: light, medium, and dark. All right, now that we have our paper ripped up, we're gonna start adding it to our blender with some warm water. We're gonna go with the lightest colors first.
And we're using warm water here, and we're just gonna fill it just up to or past the ripped up paper.
So it's gonna be a nice light blue. Okay, we're gonna add this into a tub of warm water, and then we can get paper making. And you really wanna stir up the pulp so it mixes into the water. This is the fun
There
part.
you go. I'm gonna dip it and kind of catch all that paper pulp up there, pull it up slowly, let it all seep through the water there. And then we're gonna use a dry sponge to just kind of squeeze any excess water off our new paper here. Ooh. Then we're gonna place it down on our towel here. And we're gonna use the sponge again, just to kind of push out any excess water and also help get the paper to land on the towel here.
Now we're slowly gonna pull up.
Give it a flick. And there we have our first piece of paper.
Yes, it looks great.
It does look good. It's nice and thin.
All right, we're gonna let this dry for a few hours. We don't really wanna touch it because it is really delicate until it does dry. A tip is put a fan on it. It'll speed up the process.
All right, it's all dry.
Wow,
It looks really cute.
it really does. I really love just the color change. All right, and to finish it off, we're just gonna pop it into a frame with a bit of muslin on the back just to help this pop. This looks super expensive.
It looks good.
I love it. I just think it's gonna add a big impact in our apartment. It was basically free. I mean, it was a little messy, but I had fun. I like
Yeah.
that messy.
Bye.
Today, I'm going to show you how to make this wreath out of nothing but paper. We're going to begin by making the base for our wreath, and I'm using poster board that I taped together, but you could also use a cereal box, anything that's fairly sturdy. Trace a mixing bowl onto it, and then trace a smaller bowl inside, and cut them out to get a large ring. Next, grab origami paper and cut it into 2-inch and 2.5-inch squares. To make a leaf, fold one of the squares in half diagonally and use a bone folder to really press down the folds on both sides. Then cut off the tip of the triangle. Now you're just going to copy the folds that I'm doing here, using a bone folder to make your folds super sharp and really crisp. Once you have the entire thing accordion folded like this, open it up and use scissors to trim the edges to make it a leaf shape. And that's it. That's how you make an easy paper leaf. So I'm going to mix those in with a second type of leaf. and this one is way easier to make. Just use a craft knife to score down a piece of cardstock, fold it along that line, and then cut out half of a leaf shape down the entire folded piece. When you open them up, you can see that we've made even more leaves, and these are a lot more simple. They're much quicker to make. Then we're just going to use hot glue to glue them down onto the ring that we made earlier. I put hot glue just on the base of each leaf so that other leaves could layer in under them. I think this turned out so cute. It is perfect to brighten up your space. One warning though, since this is made of paper, it definitely would not survive any weather. So you're gonna want to hang this up inside rather than on your front door.